Hi, everybody. Good morning. Um, so I wanted to jump on here real quick because I found myself thinking a lot lately about how it's been about 3 years since I learned that I had been made to believe lies and manipulated for 20 years to reject my dad. And I wanted to make this video because a lot of the time I like to look back on how far I've come. It gives me hope for the future. I think it might also give some other people some hope and insight, particularly those who have been through this as children, because I know that at first it was a really, really difficult thing to wrap my head around. And I'm just going to try to be completely honest in this video, like I always am, but even more so, um, just answering your questions. If you have any questions, please leave them in the chat, and comments, please leave them in the chat. And let's just get right to it. 3 years. Hmm. My first thoughts when I reflect on this are thoughts of gratitude. I'm so lucky and so grateful that I did have the revelation 3 years ago that, oh my God, I've rejected my dad for 2 decades. And I don't think that it was based on the truth. And I'm so grateful that I learned everything. And in some ways, I can look back and imagine what my life would have been like, would have continued on a certain path that was not as fulfilling, not as peaceful and joyful um, as it is now. In some ways, I think that it would have been a wasted life if I hadn't learned the truth. And it's not just because I've been able to rebuild my relationship with my dad, although that is really important to me and significant part of my life. It's more than that. It goes back to the fundamentals of this type of psychological child abuse. It goes back to the fact that when you're made to believe that one of your parents is bad and you reject them because you're a child, you know that you come from both of your parents. So naturally, you develop this black and white mentality that half of you must be bad too. On top of that, because I was made to believe that my dad didn't love me, I would always think I was not worthy of being loved. If my own parent didn't love me, then what good am I? How am I worth anything? And so not only have I been able to rebuild that relationship with my dad, which has brought a lot of healing in and of itself, but I've also been able to deconstruct these negative core beliefs I've held about myself for so long and replace them with new um, beliefs based in reality, based on who I actually am and what I actually do. So all of this is much deeper than just reconnecting with a parent. Um, and because of that, I I think that I might have lived in this dark cage for the rest of my life if I hadn't come across that YouTube video by another person who went through this, and the pieces of my life just came together. Now, I want to get into a little bit more of the specifics. And to do that, I think I need to explain a little bit of what it was like initially. When I initially discovered the term parental alienation and learned that this is what I had been experiencing for so long, man, uh, it was like my my whole worldview was tipped on its head. I didn't know what was real. To not know what is real about yourself, about your parents, about the world, it's a really scary place to be. I was totally haunted and betrayed by my mom. I felt like I had no clue who she was, really. at the same time, I felt like I didn't know who my dad was either. If he's not this monster, if he's not this bad guy that I've been made to believe he is this whole time, who is he really? Could he be that good, loving, fun parent I remember him being as a child? Could he really be that guy? Could he really love me? Now, there were glimmers of hope and joy, even in the midst of all of that, which felt like a tornado wreaking havoc in my life. And that came through the possibility of maybe I could be loved by my dad. Maybe we could have a relationship. This is something that I never dreamed of happening when I was alienated. I never, certainly, I did long for his love and I longed for his acceptance, but the possibility of that happening was never, ever in my mind. It was something that I thought would never happen, could never happen, and I never hoped that that would actually happen because it was such an impossibility in my mind. Um, so while I was going through this horrible, horrible time, grasping, it felt like I was grasping for something to hold on to, something to anchor me in reality because I was that messed up by my mom's manipulation and constant horror stories told to me over the years, constant allegations made over the years. The lies, they ran so deep. I just couldn't fathom what was true, what was real. Um, I was having constant panic attacks throughout the days. Um, I just wanted to speed up the process, honestly. I would say for the whole first year after learning the truth, I just wanted to speed up the process. I just wanted to get to the next step and move on and get past it. The suffering was immense, the confusion unbearable. And anyone who's going through that initial tough is an understatement, that initial world changing, groundbreaking time in your life, I'm so sorry. Please hold on. It gets better with time. It may not get better completely, but it will improve with time. I promise. Now, I've also thought a lot about this, having talked to a lot of people now, and I think that what the child goes through when they discover they'd been manipulated and then abused for so long, I think that's similar to what the targeted parent goes through when they're initially alienated from their child. So it's like the parent has their emotional breakdown, their life is turned upside down when the child becomes alienated. Now, it's the same way for the child at that point, too. But the real mind boggling part and the real earth shattering part comes when you accept that you've been made to believe all these terrible things and that you were used as a weapon or your other parent, that you were purposefully withheld and isolated from your other parent so that you could be controlled and mistreated. So I found myself during that time having intense emotions, every emotion in the book. Um, at first, it was even hard for me to do research on the topic because it was so painful, the experience I was going through. Um, and that first year was one of the most difficult times in my life. Now, once I moved out to Utah, honestly, partially to get away from my family of origin and my um, abusive parent, my life started to look up again. I started to get my feet on the ground. What I mean by that is I started to be able to know what was true and real about my dad, about my mom, about myself, about the world. I started to be more grounded in reality. I began enjoying hobbies that I had once loved. I started to find a lot more joy and peace in my life, and it really made a difference. So, the second year after learning the truth, I started the Anti-Alienation Project. Um, and the reason why I started this is because I it shocked me that nobody else was really talking about it besides Ryan Thomas online in a big way. And even at that time, I just wanted to alert society to this issue so that more people who were alienated from their parent would learn the truth. That's as simple as that. And I recall so many times crying to my husband or crying by myself and going onto YouTube and almost deleting my channel so many times that second year, which was the first year of the Anti-Alienation Project. And it wasn't because of any mean comments. It wasn't because I was bored or anything like that. The reason why I constantly wanted to delete my videos is because I felt so guilty putting my mom in a negative light. I still do at times feel that way, not enough to take my videos down anymore, but it was a big struggle that second year to produce videos, to write scripts for videos, to edit videos, to receive feedback, and to know that my mom might possibly be watching. I don't know if she is or not, but she probably knows that I'm doing this by now. And the thought of hurting her made me feel like such a lousy daughter. And yeah, I know that some people watching this might think, but she hurt you so bad, but she took away your relationship with your dad for so long. And you're not, I know myself that I'm not saying her name. I'm not putting out her picture. I'm not doing this to bring her down. I'm not doing this out of anger. I know I have the right motivations. Even still, the nature of the beast puts her in a negative light. It just does. And when it's your own family of origin, especially your own mother, nobody wants to hurt their parents. Nobody wants to hurt their their mom, even when they've been mistreated and abused. It's not my intention to hurt my mom. In fact, the possibility that my channel and my videos might hurt my mom is what had me almost take down my project so many times. So that second year was a matter of pushing through. It was a matter of relearning the world, what was real, what was true. About intense therapy the first and second years. Um, Also just rediscovering myself, what I love, making new friendships, fostering, putting more into existing friendships, putting my marriage first, focusing on my children. And the Anti-Alienation Project, from the start, I had specific goals. And the first year, I was able to meet all of those goals. I was really proud of myself. In fact, I was able to do more than I initially set out to do. I was able to put on an in-person event in Colorado State University. I put together an awareness campaign that did really well for last April 25th, Parental Alienation Awareness Day. My videos, while I didn't reach as big of an audience as I had hoped, um, I still managed to meet all of my goals with my videos. But behind the scenes, I was struggling. I was struggling very hard with putting my mom in a negative light and felt so guilty about that. Now, fast forward to year three, I had to take a break because the pregnancy was from hell. Um, there were days where I couldn't even keep any food or water down. Uh, I I had so many hospital admissions, it became impossible for me to maintain the project as I had initially hoped for. So it was necessary to take a step back. I didn't step back 100%, but I did definitely step back. Now, I'm getting really real here, so hopefully you're okay with that. Um, my other two pregnancies and births, postpartum, all of it, um, I had a relationship with my mom. And to go through pregnancy, birth, childbirth, postpartum, to go through all of that, and that vulnerability, especially with all of my health challenges and the baby's health challenges, which I'm not getting into for privacy reasons, but to go through all of that without your mom is difficult. Not impossible. I did it and I'm still doing it. Not impossible, but it's difficult. And give me a second. The reality of the situation is that I had not had any moments where I missed my mom until I became pregnant. So once I stepped back from the AAP, I'm dealing with this horrific pregnancy and a baby with medical issues. It's complicated, it's overwhelming. I missed my mom. At first, that scared me. Um, and with that came a whole new aspect of the grieving process, which was a lot of sadness and a little bit of anger. I started to feel angry at my mom, not for what she did, but angry that she couldn't see the dysfunction, that she could not want to be better, that she didn't want to change so that we could have a relationship. I felt angry at her for taking away my mom. I don't know if that makes sense. It came down to continue to be mistreated, manipulated, and abused, or have no relationship because she didn't think there was anything wrong. She refused to take accountability, refused to apologize, everything like that. And being in that vulnerable situation, of course, you have all the hormones going and everything like that. But I was also scared. I just wanted my mom. And it was really hard to miss her and to know that reaching out to her, calling her, anything was out of the picture. So year three really did push me to be there for myself. Of course, I had my husband, my friends, other family members, my dad. But I realized in those moments in the whole year, it was really evident to me that I needed to be there for myself. I needed to be there to comfort myself, to affirm myself and my beliefs, to trust myself, and to know that I was okay. If I could go back and talk to that younger version of myself 3 years ago who was in a tailspin, um, struggling to accept that this is real, that I could move forward, not knowing what to do, how to do it, not being able to see a path forward. I would tell her, hold on, you got to get through the hard stuff so that you make it to the other side. There is another side out there. Um, I did and still do consider it somewhat of a miracle that I was able to break through the very intense 20 years of mind control and question my long held beliefs. But it shouldn't have been a miracle. Everybody in society should know what this is, that it's wrong to badmouth your other parent, that it's wrong to manipulate your child to reject their other parent, that when a loving, healthy relationship between a child and parent suddenly is turned upside down, suddenly becomes contentious, full of hatred and anger and fear upon a custody dispute or a divorce or difficulties in the marriage, that should be a warning sign in the absence of abuse. Um, so personally, in being in year 3 now, I am really happy to say that there are a lot of things I know for certain. I know who I am. Um, I know that these negative beliefs that I've had about myself since the alienation began at age 9, I know why I had those beliefs. I know where they come from. I know how to fight them. I also know who my dad is. I really do. I know that I can trust him. I know that I can call him and receive emotional support from him. My mom always told me, don't call your dad. You know that he can't help you. You know that he doesn't want to talk about your emotions. He won't care. So I never did. But she was just isolating me because I call my dad all the time now, and he is really supportive. He says all the things that I wish my mom had said throughout the years. Furthermore, I know to an extent who my mom is. And, at first, there was so much anger. Rightfully so, I believe. There was so much anger, rage at the beginning, pure rage. I had actually never felt that angry in my whole life. It was the type of rage that scares you when you feel it. I mean, I never felt that way in my life. Full body rage. I had to start running every day to try to get it out of me. And I was scared the rage and the anger, I was scared it would never go away. I was scared that was something I was going to have to live with forever. Thank God it does go away. It's something I've had to work through and process. It did and does go away for anyone who might be in the midst of that. I never really thought I would get to a place of acceptance. And I'm trying to get to that radical acceptance. I feel pity for my mom these days, if anything. Um, there's this saying that I've heard. It's about narcissistic abuse and all their different tactics. And when you have people who are doing the narcissist's bidding and trying to pressure you into talking to them again or trying to invalidate your own experience, and they take the narcissist's side, and the narcissist will try to get you back into the fold and all these tactics. What I tell myself is this little phrase I heard a while ago, not my circus, not my monkeys. And that's true. It's not my circus. They're not my monkeys. Anything that she's doing, that's her life. That's her obsession. That's her issue. And in the initial stages, I had a few people tell me, forgiveness is key. Forgiveness is what's going to set you free. If you're listening to this and you're struggling to forgive the person who abused you, please know that forgiveness is often the last step. And it's not something that you do for them. And it's not something that you should be pressured into. I'm getting to the place of forgiveness. I have forgiven her. I do pity her. I wish I could go back to when she was a child and save her from experiencing the trauma and the mistreatment that she experienced, which led her to repeat the cycle. That's it. Um, Year 3 has been with my dad, has been really great. At first, there was a lot of questioning about who my dad was, about which lies were lies, how much truth was in the lies. Was it exaggeration or complete fabrication? I had to train my body to be okay in my dad's presence because after 20 years of having anxiety when I was in my dad's presence at all, that was a natural response and I couldn't shake it for a while. Even though I logically knew he wasn't the scary person I had believed he was, I still got a fast heart rate. I still was sweaty around him. I still was nervous and anxious to touch him, to hug him, to be myself around him. And if you're stuck in that place where you are trying to deconstruct your beliefs, you're trying to get close to that parent that you've rejected, the best advice I have is to think of it like exposure therapy. So, exposure therapy is what is used to treat people with phobias. For example, if you have somebody who is a phobia, by the way, is, and this is like not the actual definition, this is my understanding of it, is that it's a fear that is not justified. So, um, if somebody has a phobia of the ocean, the way that exposure therapy works is they do it in steps. Like the first step might be to show that person a photo of the ocean and have them just look at the photo and try to regulate their fear. Now, the next step at the next session might be to listen to the sounds of the ocean while running their hands under running water. Try to acclimate to the sounds and the feelings of the ocean and water. Eventually, they might get to the step where they actually stand on the sand and look out at the ocean and try to overcome their fear, try to experience their fear and release their fear. And then the last step would be getting in the water. And exposure therapy is really helpful for extreme fears that are not justified. And when you learn, or sorry, when you've experienced this form of child abuse for so long, oftentimes you've developed a phobia of your parent that you've rejected. I certainly did. And so while I did have anger and hurt, I also had tons of fear. I put myself through exposure therapy and it was really effective. there are times even still where something will come up and I'll have a thought like, oh no, no, I shouldn't call my dad. He won't want to hear about that, or he won't want to deal with my emotions. Um, some old thoughts that have been programmed in my head for so long. And when I have those old thoughts, I challenge them. So in that case, I'd call my dad. I'd call my dad to face my fear. Because if I were to give in and not call my dad that time, it would just build the phobia back up. So if you have certain fears of what that parent might say or do, or if you have certain thoughts and beliefs that are creeping back up, I would challenge you to identify what's going on and challenge it, which often means doing the opposite urge of what your natural urge is. So, for example, in the phone call example, my urge would be to retreat, to isolate, to be afraid that my dad won't be able to be supportive, that he won't care about my emotions because he doesn't care about me. These are all old thoughts, old beliefs. Well, I have to identify it. I'm having these old thoughts and old beliefs, and then I have to challenge them. How do I do that? Well, maybe they're old thoughts and beliefs. Is that true? I'm not sure if that's true. I need to figure out what's true. I need to figure out if my dad is capable of offering me emotional support. What's, and then you identify your action urge. So my action urge in that moment would be to not call him, to retreat into myself and to isolate, keep my emotions, my feelings and thoughts to myself, like I've done for 20 years. And so to fight that phobia, to change the thoughts and beliefs, you have to do the opposite of what you want to do naturally. So I naturally want to retreat, not call him. Bang, I'm doing the opposite. I'm going to call him. Now, for targeted parents, it's really important that if your child does reach out to you, um, that's why I try to do these videos sometimes because it could be helpful to know how difficult and scary it is for a child who's been through this to even reach out to their parent, especially to express their emotions to that parent. So if your child does reach out to you or makes a move in your direction, they're gonna analyze every little response you give, down to your body language, down to your what you say, your tone, how you say it. They're going to be looking to see if you're the person they've been manipulated to believe you are, or if you're the person they remember you being before the alienation. They're on the lookout. They're trying to decide at that point who you are. They're trying to figure out the truth. And that's why it's so important that while you're alienated, to focus on your own healing. So by that time your child reaches out, your child makes a move, you won't respond in anger. You won't respond out of the traumatized, hurt self. You will hopefully respond from a place of understanding and love and compassion, knowing just how much strength and bravery it took for your child to reach out in the first place. So, before I end this live, I did want to touch on one thing, which is something that um, I believe my friend Katie was talking about. And it is the three paths forward for alienated children. Um, it is somewhat relevant to this 3-year update I'm giving. So the first path forward for alienated children, we'll start with we'll get the negative out of the way. Let's put it that way. The first path forward for for alienated children, unfortunately, is to remain alienated. And that is the worst path for them. Now, I've heard parents say isn't it better that they just remain in the false reality? Isn't it better to just let things go how they are? Won't they hurt less? I can't imagine my child having to have this realization and go through the pain of realizing who uh, their other parent really is. I don't want to put them through that trauma. No, it is not better. No. If they remain alienated, they remain in the dark. They remain cut off from the parent who actually loves them, who actually can offer them healthy, unconditional love. Moreover, if they remain alienated, they remain cut off from themselves. They will retain those negative beliefs about themselves as long as they believe those negative beliefs about their other parent. And that is almost cursed. That is a horrible way to live. Okay? Horrible way to live. Yes, there will be pain if they learn the truth. Yes, there will be trauma, and there will be healing, and there will be a new life, and there will be reconnection, and there will be tons of joy. So don't ever think that it's better to remain in the dark. Life is not worth living in a cage. It's not. So the first path forward, unfortunately, is to remain alienated for years, months, possibly an entire lifetime. This is not what we want to happen. That's why I'm doing this project. That's why we need to raise awareness, um, so that everybody in society knows what this is and can alert other people to when it's going on. The second path forward for alienated kids, and this is not something official, this is just our thoughts as the alienated kids, me and my friend Katie. So the second path forward is to learn the truth and try to heal, which is great, and try to move forward. Um, that's an admirable path. I do see a lot of people getting stuck in that process of reconnecting with their parent. Um, I could do a whole series or videos on that alone, the different tactics I've used to reconnect with my parent. Because I see a lot of people getting stuck there, and it's really sad. They're not able to really rebuild the relationship in the way they want. And a lot of it is because of the parents' responses, and the parents' lack of understanding of what they've been through, etc. So for that path forward, yes, they learn the truth, and yes, they may try to rebuild the relationship with their parent. But from my point of view, um, what this path forward seems to lack is a sense of empowerment, a sense of community, and a lack of that really good relationship with their parent. Although I suppose sometimes they can achieve that in that path forward. So that's the second path forward. Third path forward is kind of what I've done, which is you learn the truth, you try to heal, you rebuild your relationship with that parent. And for me, and the last step is you try to help other people. You become an advocate for other people going through this. Why is that important? Well, this is extreme trauma, in my opinion. This is immense amount of pain and suffering. And when you go through something like this, let me talk from my own point of view. When I learned everything, and after a year of, figuring it out and trying my best on my own to just white knuckle through it, fix my beliefs on my own with therapy, and I was left with the feeling like I did not go through all of this crap for nothing. I'm not going to let all this pain go to waste. I have to try to help other people. I have to try to do something that matters. I can't have gone through all of this unnecessary heartbreak for nothing. And in that way, I think the educating and advocating for others experiencing this abuse does empower the individual. It does help in the healing process, help make sense of it all, and put purpose to your pain. It is much easier, I think, to experience pain and suffering if you know there is a purpose behind it, if you can attach some type of meaning towards it. And not all pain and suffering has a purpose, has a meaning. Um, but you can make your own decisions of what that purpose and that meaning is. I think that's why some parents too find meaning and purpose and even empowerment in, for example, legislation, trying to change laws, or other ways of advocacy and trying to reform certain aspects of society that relate to this. So I'm not saying that everybody needs to go on that third path or that second path. You have to pick whatever path feels right for you. You have to be patient with yourself and listen to your intuition. Um, if you could think of a third path, leave it in the comments below because those are the three paths that I kind of see moving forward. Um, but to conclude, um, I I want to say thank you so much to everybody who's left supportive comments, who's watched my videos, everybody who is fighting for their children or who's fighting for the relationship with their parent, anyone who is going through this. Um, Not everybody understands this dynamic. It's very counterintuitive. Not everybody will validate what you're going through. Sorry, my dog's barking. Um, but I think as time goes on and you're able to get more and more distance from the years you lived and the lies and the manipulation, um, it's like the sun suddenly rises and then it's out completely and you're free. And you're always going to be having these internal struggles. Once in a while, they'll creep up. But to be there for yourself and be able to talk yourself down, validate yourself, um, it's very empowering and it's very important to do, no matter what position you're in, to know what's real about yourself and others in the world, and to hang on to the belief that you know your parent, that even after all this time, you know who your parent is. And if you're having confusion about that, you have the ability to learn for yourself who your parent really is. You have that ability. And as a parent, you know your child. Despite all of the manipulation and the mask or the front they may wear in front of you, that hearted, that cold, callous exterior, beneath that, you know who your child is. These are beliefs that are crucial to hang on to. And um, I've said it before. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. To hold on to the hope and to know that one day that it's possible to reconnect with your parent, with your child, makes it so much more likely that that will happen. I'm going to be doing an interview with my dad soon, but I've already asked him this one question before because I was curious. I asked him, "Did you ever think this would happen?" Because to me, I never considered that we would ever be able to have a relationship that was healthy or loving. It was not a possibility in my head, not something I dreamt about because it was so far removed from my reality. And I asked him, like, did you ever, did you think this would happen? Did you believe that I would learn the truth? Um, and he said, I always hoped that you would. He he might not have been able to know what would have happened in the future, and I'm sure that I'll learn more about this during the interview. But he never gave up on the hope that I would. Never. And I'm very, very, very grateful for that because he held on to that hope that we would be able to love each other again and have a close bond. He held on to that hope for our relationship when I didn't, when I couldn't. Truly, I couldn't. So to know that he never gave up hope is really heart touching, heartwarming. Uh, Helps me know how much he loves me. So I'm gonna end my 3-year update there. I found a lot more peace in my life this last year, despite it all. And uh, it's really great to know what's real, to know what's true. Children deserve to live in reality. Thank you for being here. And I hope that year 4 is even better.